Hi, my name is Gaurav and I'm a student at Bishop Mackenzie International School in Lilongwe, Malawi, and I'm currently in year 12 and I'm in my first year of the IB Diploma Programme. And one of the key components of that program is CAS, which is Creativity, Activity and Service. And we also have a separate CAS project, which is typically a 10-week project, and I decided that I would try and make a website because I'd never done that before, and I wanted it to be centered around a blog of sorts because I like writing and I want to pursue medicine further on, so I thought it should be on health. Now, I began this during my December break, and I began writing quite regularly and formatting the website and then posting around 6 to 7 times a day during my free time. And eventually I looked at the statistics and I'd gathered a number of readers, and as people started following me. Currently, as it stands, I have had views from over 55 different countries, and I'm getting around 900 views a day without really posting that much because of school commitments. However, when I was doing this towards the end of the December break, I got contacted by one of the readers when I had done a New Year's post and I had talked about my location and where I am and how Malawi is one of the poorest countries in the world and health problems are still prevalent here, and they are on the way to getting fixed. However, there are still some major issues. And soon enough, I had left my email and contact details on the header of my website, and I got contacted by this NGO in England known as Forward. And they told me that they had been really intrigued by what I'd written about where I was, and eventually they told me to read about them and then get back to them on what they thought. So I read about this NGO, and essentially they're an NGO which is focused on helping girls and young women and even older women in Africa in impoverished areas and rural areas, and protecting them from child marriage and genital mutilation, and overall just giving them more security, which is not that abundant. So I talked to them and I told them that I would love to talk about your NGO on my website, but in addition to that, I am currently stationed in Lilongwe, and I can very easily go to some of the rural areas, which I know because my dad works in the oil industry here, and he frequently has to go visit farmers in order to collect maize, for example. So I used a few of my free weekends in order to travel out from Lilongwe into the villages, into the rural areas, in the mountains, and I took a translator with me, and I talked to the women there and the young girls and the children, and they said they have noticed a number of child marriages taking place, and some of the practices are quite inhumane, where preteens have been impregnated by other men without their consent, and that was quite troubling. And it comes as you could call it a privilege of being able to connect with people based on my geographical location, because people in other developed countries might not have the same opportunities. So I took that down, and then I went around to a few other villages, and the feedback was around about the same. And so then I got into contact with this NGO again, and I said, these are the primary issues that people are having, and they seem to be not as apparent as the Western media portrays them to be. So they said, we're not currently working on anything in Malawi or in this region in general. So I said that, why don't you take an initiative to invest in this and perhaps educate the women? So we decided that we would do a fundraiser on my website, which had by now gained quite a lot of traffic because I was writing daily. So we decided to put in a link, and I explained everything about the NGO and what they were doing and what the initiative was. And I put down a small donation link. Initially, I didn't really think of it as much because it was, I didn't know whether there would be a response or not because I hadn't tested that out. And we decided to keep the link open for 7 days as a trial period. And in the end, we managed to collect over £800, which is quite a significant amount when you convert it to the local currency here. And that is now going to be invested in the education of women around rural areas in Malawi, because they have certain officers that are in charge of continents and regions, and the officer who's in charge of Africa, he is now going to try and shift some of the funds so they can expand in this region. Primarily, they do focus on the more northern countries because it's closer to the UK. And in this instance, I got the idea of, going with other brands, and I noticed on my Instagram I have an active user and an active account, and I use that to promote my website. And I saw that this clothing brand in Dubai, it's called Kabila, and it makes abayas, Islamic clothing for women. And they've clearly stated that all the funds from those sales go to humanitarian causes in countries such as Pakistan and Bangladesh. And they're primarily targeted toward women as well. So I got into contact with this brand, and now we have started discussing on how to deploy the funds in the right areas, because I'm from India and I know of quite a few areas in India that are in need of these kinds of funds, and they're often neglected by the government and other NGOs. And in the point of discussion, I said, well, okay, why don't we talk about this and I should promote your clothing on my website. And we're currently in discussion because I wanted to make sure that the funds that were being delivered were for humanitarian causes that would help women, because as I've learned from taking geography higher level in the diploma program, is that women are heavily underrepresented throughout the globe, and particularly in underdeveloped countries, they don't have much of a say. And in order to bring these countries out of poverty, women are essentially the future, and that's where most of the investment should be. And so through this course, I have been continually writing on my website and will hopefully further work with another few NGOs, because for me, I don't personally think that CAS should be an obligation. This project was supposed to be 10 weeks, and now it's progressed to being a few months old. And I plan to continue on for the next few years because I love writing. And this isn't something that's superficial or something that I want to be a badge on my university application, because I really do want to take advantage of being in the privileged position that I am in an underdeveloped country, to connect with the people around me and really get to the root of the problem. Because, for example, thousands and thousands of students do Model United Nations, where they pass resolutions. However, that is a form of providing first world solutions to essentially third world problems. You're in a hotel room, in a conference room, and you're discussing problems without the people who are going to be impacted by the solutions having a say. So I felt like this was something different and something that I would actually passionately pursue.